eternity. Every man's an angel. The bones as holy as the seraphim. The madman as holy as you, my soul, holy. The typewriter is holy. The poem is holy. The voice is holy.
It has taken me a really long time to get comfortable with this. Not the pose. With this. With my vagina. It has taken me a long time to accept my vagina as a place of yogic ecstasy, of bliss and light and truth. People who know me think that I'm very comfortable with my sexuality, but it hasn't always been that way. There was a time when my pussy was in such pain. I had this raging yeast infection that would happen every time I had sex. So I basically always had one. It was like this big gaping wound down there. And that's what we call it. A wound, a gash, a cut, a slit. I remember my early days of Ashtanga yoga. We were preparing for the arrival of the great Ashtanga guru from India. And I was working with my lovely teacher, Sharon. And we were doing this pose, Gadu Pindasana, or fetus in the womb. And you need a lot of water if you're going to go back there and swim in the mother's belly. But why would I want to go back there? See, my mother, she was just a teenager. And my father, he had run off to California to become an artist. He didn't want a baby. He didn't want a family. And he wasn't even there for my birth, right? And you have to be able to roll back once for each month of gestation. And so I do it. And I get stuck. And the first thing you realize is you can't do this practice without a teacher. So there I was, practicing on this cloud of devotion. And I started to smell this really horrible smell one day. Every time I got close to the ground, it smelled awful. And then I realized, this isn't my mat. No, that is my mat. That guy has my mat. And his mat stinks. Doesn't he know anything about Sausha, cleanliness? You know, it's the first and the second limb of Ashtanga Yoga is the Namas and the Niyamas. They're the moral codes. And it's really hard to practice when you're angry. And especially when you don't want to breathe. And somehow I find some contentment, right? Some santosha. You cultivate that too. And I'm going up into one of my favorite poses. Try to breathe. Finding, yeah, there it is, contentment. And boom! Up! He kicks me in the face! And he doesn't stop. He doesn't say he's sorry. He just keeps on going. I mean, come on, that's himsa, harm. Where's your ahimsa? Non-violence is the first fucking principle of yoga. And I'm just like, okay, forget it, I give up. I'm not gonna practice. I'm just gonna go upstairs, I'm gonna take a drink of water.
Every day is an eternity. Every man's an angel. The bones is holy as the seraphim. The madman is holy as you, my soul, holy. The typewriter is holy. The poem is holy. The voice is holy.
It has taken me a really long time to get comfortable with this. Not the pose. With this. With my vagina. It has taken me a long time to accept my vagina as a place of yogic ecstasy, of bliss and light and truth. People who know me think that I'm very comfortable with my sexuality, but it hasn't always been that way. I remember my first yoga class back in college. The teacher did a lot of demonstrating, and she had us all sort of gather there beneath her. And I noticed that she was bleeding. There was a little spot there, her period. And she said, I'm taking my tailbone down and back and forward, and I'm taking my pubic bone down to meet it, and I'm thinking of them meeting there between. Can you all see that? And I'm like, lady, you're bleeding. Aren't you a little embarrassed? It's interesting how I've been open and closed with my sexuality. I was my father's favorite model. I posed naked for his drawings and his drawing classes and his paintings from 5 till puberty, when he suddenly started painting still lifes of brick walls. I'll never forget my 5th grade class trip. We went to the local art gallery, and it was all nude paintings of me. I had no idea that it was a bad thing to be naked in public. I learned that day. All the kids were like, ooh, goodies, she's naked! I felt like Eve in the garden. For the first time, I wanted to cover myself. I've had a lot of sex with a lot of people, but it's hard for me to talk about the dark side of my pussy. It's hard for me to talk about my pussy in pain. It's hard for me to say how I'd like to be touched and how I really don't want to be touched. There was a time when my pussy was in such pain. I had this raging yeast infection that would happen every time I had sex. So I basically always had one. It was like this big gaping wound down there. And that's what we call it. A wound, a gash, a cut, a slit. I remember my early days of Ashtanga yoga. We were preparing for the arrival of the great Ashtanga guru from India. And I was working with my lovely teacher, Sharon. And we were doing this pose, Gadu Pindasana, or fetus in the womb. And you need a lot of water if you're going to go back there and swim in the mother's belly. But why would I want to go back there? See, my mother, she was just a teenager. And my father, he had run off to California to become an artist. He didn't want a baby. He didn't want a family. And he wasn't even there for my birth, right? And you have to be able to roll back once for each month of gestation. And so I do it. And I get stuck. And the first thing you realize is you can't do this practice without a teacher. So luckily, my teacher, Sharon, she takes me there, one hand on either knee, and she rolls me gently, easily, once for each month of gestation. And I can go there. And then comes the part that I can do on my own. See, I can support myself. Usually, I know I can do it. I can support myself. And then you have to be able to let it go and move on and roll to the next thing. And again, I get stuck and I'm trying to jump back, and my teacher, she helps me, she takes me, but she lifts me up by my crotch. Ah! Ah! Ooh! Like it's some kind of saddle hook or something. I bet she never dared perform that assist again. It's hard for me to relax around my privates. It's always been such a battleground down there. Hard to let go of my distrust, my fight. I wonder if that guru in India meant to put trust into that spot. Yoga. Do you know what it means? It means union, or to yoke, to bring things together. It's like my favorite Zen joke. What did the Zen master say to the hot dog stall man? Make me one with everything. To be one with everything. To know that we are all one. Like right here, right now. It would seem that each one of you is up there in your seats, and I'm all alone on stage. Each of you is deep inside me, in my heart. I wonder if we could all come together right now. I mean it. Come together now. Let's try it. 1, 2, 3. I knew you could do it. Take a deep breath in. And a deep breath out. We're all in this together. Breathing each other's breaths, sharing each other's lives. There's this image with the goddess Saraswati. And she's the goddess of your birth, where you come from, your family. And she's also the goddess of the arts, the stage. And she has this familiar animal, a swan. And the swan has this amazing ability, see? It can take the dirtiest pond water, and it drinks in what's good, and lets go away what's bad, all the dirt. And it's not that she ignores the dirt, she just doesn't let it affect her. It's beautiful, right? But so fucking hard to follow. I teach yoga for a living now. I teach group classes, and I teach privates. Private yoga in your own home. And the first time that I ever taught a private was in this place in Tribeca. And I was told to go to the Harmony Theater. And I thought that sounded really like already yogic, you know? To be in harmony, to be in tune. And there was a sign out front and it said, burlesque dancing. And I thought that sounded really fun too. Like cowboys and saloon dresses and that kind of stuff. And I went in and I stood in front of the box office and I looked behind me and there was this photograph of a spread eagle open beaver shot. And I couldn't help myself. I said, excuse me, is the woman of the house, the madam, your boss, is your boss here? I'm here to teach her yoga. Union. And I went up in the elevator and it opened to this huge, white, beautiful loft. and there were all these toys laying around, like sex toys. And then I noticed that there were these ropes on the wall to hang from, and I thought, God, only the best yoga studios have that kind of stuff. So I started to practice and think about the kind of things that this woman and I could do together. And then I looked, and she came in, and she was huge. I mean, rolling, curving, swaying mother goddess energy, like 250 pounds of it. And she had all these golden ringlets, like piled on top of her head. She was wearing this flowing muumuu Hawaiian tent dress. And she's saying in this Eastern European accent, I wonder if we could do our stretches in the hot tub. And I was trying to say something, but I was kind of caught up in the ropes. And she said, this way, darling, to the hot tub. It'll be warm. I can melt my body there. And I was like following her through these endless hallways, and we're going on and on and on. And you know, this is Tribeca. Where can we be going? And finally, the doors open to this big bedroom. And there's this Egyptian god of a man standing there. He's in front of this huge canopy bed, and it's got lace curtains and red velvet bedspread and pillows of every color and size and texture you can imagine. And he's got rippling muscles, and he's oiled, and he's wearing this little gold lame bikini. He's holding this little tiny baby in his arms. I mean, like really, like baby, like infant. Like, I'm not making this stuff up. She says, that's my lover Mohammed and my baby Tiffany. This way to the hot tub. And the doors open, and it's steaming and bubbling, and there's plates of fruit, exotic, and champagne on ice, and I'm like swooning thinking about aphrodisiacs, and I finally managed to say, you know, I'm not covered in the case of slip insurance with bodies of water. Maybe we should do our practice somewhere dry. And she goes for it. So we go back through the bedroom where Mohammed is putting the baby to bed in the crib, and then back out to the living room. And we basically start to have this really nice class. I mean, that's the thing about yoga. You can do it with anyone, anywhere. But you gotta face the truth. And sometimes the truth is hard to face. And at one point she starts crying. And she says, you know, I'm so fat, I can't do anything. I mean, I was thin, I was beautiful. Can we just look at pictures of me then? And I say, no. Be here now. Love this God-given divine body that you dance with the universe now. And she hears it. And I see that she is beautiful. And at the end of class, she lies down in corpse pose, Shavasana. And I say, relax your feet, relax your legs, relax your buttocks, relax your inner groins, relax your womb, relax the vaginal walls, and relax your clitoris, and the head on the clitoris. And all of a sudden, she screams out in this huge voice, Mohammed, get ready for the best fucking of your life! And this wave of sadness came over me. You know, here, in one class, she got it. Total relaxation, complete acceptance of herself, and she wasn't like quiet and secretive with this great, divine, and sexual energy. No, she was open and jubilant. And I thought, just who is the student here? And who is the teacher? So these asanas, practicing these postures, it's the third limb of the Ashtanga system, or the 8-limb system. And when you practice this, it's like mind control, right? And when you control your mind, you can control your Kundalini, your life force, your energy. And as it rises up the spine, you get siddhis, or magical powers. So a yogi may suddenly levitate, walk on water, walk through a wall, because she knows she's no different than that wall, so why not? The thing is, you gotta be really strong. Because when this happens, it's really mind-blowing. I wasn't ready for this. Most of us aren't, so it's not uncommon to have what's called a Kundalini breakdown. I was teaching a class. I had been upstate 2 ashrams, and I had all this really powerful Shakti in my meditation. And I had a rebirthing and sweat lodge and a colonic. So my channels were like wide open. And there I am, teaching at the hippest, the coolest, unapologetically God-centered yoga studio in New York City. It's a sold-out class. There's 40, 50 bodies there sweating. And there's Willem Dafoe, my favorite yogi there in the front row. Talk about cities. He is so magnetic. When he's in class, I try to get around the room, I try to get to everybody, but every time I notice, there I am, again, at Willem. He's so beautiful. But then I notice that everyone is beautiful. I mean, like, really beautiful. I mean, they're all radiating white light. And I feel like I've been with each and every one of them since the time of their birth. And there's people who are dead and gone here in my class. There's my high school boyfriend, Mike Jays. He got hit by a fire truck. And there's my cousin Christian, who committed suicide. And there's Ramakrishna in my class. And I realize I'm losing my fucking mind. And then I think, God, this is not good, because there's 50 people here, and they're all doing what I tell them. They're breathing in and out and responding to every word I say. And I have no control over what I'm going to say. I mean, I'm sprouting this Vedanta philosophy that I didn't even know that I understood, and I'm doing a really good job of it. And I don't know what I'm about to say. I'm losing my mind. Time and space is no longer a reality. I try to orient myself. I put my hands on a student's back, and they go right through. And I can kind of move their organs around and instantaneously heal them. And I look at my arm, and there's this rainbow of colors coming off of it. I mean, the whole room is like interweaving, pulsating auras. And I think, you know what, I better get myself to the front desk. Because I need to go to the loony farm. Enough of this meditation, I need some medication. Now. And then this little voice in the back of my head says, Marisa, maybe this is just too much Kundalini. Maybe you're having a Kundalini breakdown. It'll pass. So I go on teaching. And I managed to teach the whole class. I even finish on time. And then at the end, I'm saying goodnight to everybody, and Willem comes up to me and says, that was the best class I ever had. Four years into my yoga studies, I discovered Ashtanga Yoga. That's Ashtanga Yoga of Ashtanga Yoga, or the poses, these asanas set up in a certain order, as set up by one teacher, as taught to him by his teacher. So, I studied with David Life, Danny Paradise, Richard Freeman. I mean, just say their names, and you already know. And it's set up in such a way that you get a chance to have meditation in action. You flow with the poses, pose to pose. It's all choreographed, and it's really hard, and you sweat a lot, so it's really good for New Yorkers. And it's fast, and you get this great workout, and you get to sweat so your skin shines. But the best thing is, the coolest people do Ashtanga Yoga. So when you do it, you get to hang out with them every day. Get this. Madonna does Ashtanga Yoga. And through the practice, I got to sleep with her. At the end, after you do all that hard work, you lay down and take a nap. Just like we used to do in kindergarten, remember? And I laid down next to Madonna, and I slept with her. It was beautiful. I mean, in the deepest folds of her skin, still smells like jasmine. So, about 8 years ago, the great Ashtanga guru came from India. And I was able to get into this class. It was sold out. And it was mid-August. Heat wave. So hot. And he says, close the windows and turn off the fans. In about 2 minutes, there was this human perspiration on the windows. You couldn't even see through it. I remember dropping down into my 9,000th chaturanga of the day, right? That's this pose here. And I looked and I saw a clear reflection of my face in a puddle of my own sweat. The guru was really cute. Very cute. I mean, he was 80 years old. And he wore these boxer shorts, and they said Calvin Klein all the way around the waistband. And for a shirt, all he had was this string from one shoulder down to his waist. He didn't say a lot. If you came out of a pose too early, he said, bad lady, $10 fine. If you couldn't hold your balance, he said, why are you dancing? This is yoga, no dancing. And he would not take no for an answer. I remember this one pose I was doing, and he was standing over me and he said, chin to shin. I said, I'm trying. He said, no, chin to shin. I said, I'm trying. And he took his hand and he put it on the back of my head and he pushed my chin right down to my shin. And then the next pose, which was a little harder, he was standing over me again and he said, put your head on the floor. You better believe I put my head on the floor. It's really important in this practice that you surrender to the will of the teacher. So through that, you let go of your singular little will and you open up to the big cosmic divine will. It was really easy for me to get caught in that singular little girl will. You know, the one who got stuck in gym class, always picked last. Had to go to special gym class to learn how to bounce a ball. And here, with these gymnasts and dancers, I was flying and soaring. I mean, he made me feel so strong, so graceful. I wanted to go and study with him in India. And it was said that if you went there for 3 months, you had a really good chance of getting these first series of poses, which is all about the lotus. And then like the flower, you can rise up out of the muck and the mire of the physical world and fly and blossom with divine blue sky. So I thanked him. And I said, I'm coming to India to study with you. And he said, come. And he gave me his business card. And I held it every day. I carried it for 4 years till I finally followed through on my dream. And during those years, I had this great Buddhist meditation teacher and healer. And I had met him through my marriage because my husband was Jewish and I had been brought up Catholic. Except my mother became a feminist, so then she took us out of church, stopped shaving our armpits, and she raised us as atheists. And then I started doing this Hinduism yoga stuff, and so, we said, okay, let's have a Buddhist wedding. And after the wedding, after the divorce, I stayed really close with the priest. And he used to give me these massages. Like, he would take his knuckle, and he would kind of insert it in between my bones and my muscles, and go, and I'd just scream and fly all over the table. But at the end, I was like this big puddle of jello. I mean, you could just do anything to me. And one day he did. He took his fingers and he just went right up through my vagina, right up through my cervix. I mean, seemingly into the unknown. In about 2 seconds, I had the most mind-blowing orgasm where for one moment that was stretched out to an eternal second, I was existentially in love and in truth with the entire cosmos. And this was not one fist fucking one pussy. No, this was God merging with all of creation. And he pulled up. And he said, I'll meet you downstairs. So I got dressed and I went downstairs and he was sitting there in his white robes with a big pile of books. You have some stuck sexual tension in your second chakra. And I can heal you. Read these books, study, and return when you're ready for a ritualistic healing. And I will teach you, and we will practice Tantra. Now, I've been hearing about Tantra for a long time. Tantric yoga, tantric sex. It was your basic ashram pickup line. Hey, baby, do you do Tantra? But I didn't know anything about it. Not a thing. So I read, and I studied, and I got really excited. See, these books talked about these poses that couples would go into and rituals that would last for days. And before there was any union of yoni and lingam, or penis and vagina, the woman sat on this pedestal. And the man had to worship her as the goddess. He had to shower her with gifts, flowers, fruits, jewels, and honor each and every part of her body as the body of the goddess. And the books talked about how orgasm is that place where you're totally at peace, completely happy, blissfully happy, and you let go of that singular self and you merge with the cosmos. And they talked about how the woman has the Shakti, the energy. So the man, he has to hold back on his orgasm so that the woman can have multiple orgasms. And then there's magic. Huge magic. So this idea of these multiple orgasms and sexual magic, it sounded really great to me. So the day came, and I got ready for this healing with the priest. My breath was a little uneven, so I practiced the pranayama, breathing, second limb of Ashtanga Yoga. And I imagined this white light around me, and I thought I'm going to be in this white light for days. Wouldn't you know? Stripped and fucked in under 10 minutes. And then he turns to me, and all he can say is, "Don't forget your earrings." I want my wife to find them. So my healings with the priest left me a little empty. But they stirred in me a passion for something that was more than just friction between two bodies. I didn't have a partner, so I practiced rituals on my own. I sat in front of a mirror and I honored every part of my body as the body of the goddess. And then I started dating this really cute guy at the yoga center. He had such a great practice. It was like he was one of these priestesses in the books. I mean, he was aligned between heaven and earth, between east and west. And as we practiced next to each other, sharing the same breaths, the same movements, I imagined us as a pair of Dakini priestess and her worshiping priest in divine sexual union, floating on the clouds. We dated for months before we finally decided to do it. And we didn't talk about the details of the event, but we both said we'd make it special. So I made this magic circle, and I did my breathing practices in it, and I made a lingam altar, honoring his penis, with dildos and flutes and bananas and anthium flowers, the red-hearted ones with the yellow phallus, and scents and oils. And I made a yoni altar, honoring my vagina. And I had multi-petaled flowers and orchids and pomegranates and peaches and little Georgia O'Keeffe paintings. And scents and oils. And just when he was about to come over, he said, "You know, my house is warmer and there's better lighting, so why don't you come to my house?" So I did. And he didn't have any altars, but he had great lighting. And these candles, and he had made a special tape of this music. Nina Simone, all these other really great singers. And we sat, knees just touching, hands in namaste, and we bowed forehead to forehead. It was so lovely. And I asked him to meditate, lay his head in my lap, and we meditated. The energy was amazing. And he came up and he said, "Whoa, it's a little dangerous down there. You guys shouldn't stay there too long." I was kind of like embarrassed of my Shakti powers. And then we were looking into each other's eyes deeply. And he said, "I wonder if you'd wear something special I brought for this evening." And I remembered I had pointed out this teddy in the catalog. I thought that was so sweet. And he pulls out this black velvet blindfold. Now, okay, I'm not a prude or anything. I'm really up for adventure. But I thought we were going to have yogic conscious sex. Not wild blind sex. But he reminded me of pratyahara, the fifth limb of Ashtanga Yoga. The yogi is to withdraw the senses from the outer world and bring them inward. So I let him put the blindfolds on. I was a little disconcerting at first. I was kind of, and then he reminded me how you go into a pose, into like a balance, like a tree pose, and you can find your inner gaze. And I found it, and it started to feel kind of nice. And he'd kiss me on one shoulder, and then he'd kiss me on my thigh, and then he'd kiss me at my back, and I kind of didn't know where he's going to kiss me next. And it got to be like he was so huge, like he was like God or something. And I started to feel really confident, and I stepped forward, and this thing snapped around my ankle, and then the other one, it snapped, and I raised up my hands, like, what's going on? And snap, snap, and all of a sudden I was bound up in this place, and I couldn't move. I said, "Manuel, what are you doing? I won't be able to wrap my legs around you. I won't be able to hold you." And he nuzzled his chin in the corner of my neck and whispered, "Remember Jesus' words in the Bible. Be still and know that I am." And I heard his footsteps as he came around in front of me, and he ripped open the front of my shirt and snapped open my bra with something. And he kissed me in the center of my chest, and I felt my whole body sigh and let him in. He said, "Stiram Sukham Asanam." The posture is steady and comfortable and still. In that place of stillness, you feel your subtle body, you feel your energy body. And I felt it. In being held in one still place, I felt my energy moving and infinite and flying. I felt like I was a Dakini priestess. And then I heard this ominous noise. And I said, "Manuel, what's that?" And he said, very casually, like it was normal, "It's my whip." No, I can't handle that. And I felt a big bunch of cold air at my back as he ripped open the back of my shirt, and he took a feather and he just touched it down the length of my spine, and I shuddered. Not in fear, in pleasure. He was so damn good. Everything he did just melted and molded me to his command. Tapas, baby. Don't forget that the yoga practice takes discipline. And it's built on the master and disciple relationship. Surrender to my teachings. Oh, baby. And I did. I breathed. It was really all I could do. And I heard the little bit of air that went up in the air, and then, "Ah! That just hurts! Get me the fuck out of this!" And he does. He lets me down. And I think, even this could be healing. If right now, if he can just hold me like the mother, like Magdalene, if he can hold me and take care of me now, if he can make me feel safe here, then this could be healing. But he doesn't. He tells me my pain threshold is too low. He tells me my ego will is too strong. He says, "You'll never feel divine. Let thy will be done." He says, "You won't make it in India for 3 months with the guru. You won't make it for a day." But 6 months later, there I was. I saw India. And I am mesmerized by the practice room, by the guru, and by all these students. I mean, all of them, they're like lined up the hall and up the stairs, and they're crammed in this room. There's people doing things you would see in a Chinese circus here, with great grace. And there's a little bit of the Chinese torture going on too. There's a lot of kind of moaning and groaning as this 80-something-year-old man pushes body after body beyond its limits. But mostly, there's just the sound of breath. It's like one big lung. And then I see that the guru is helping this woman in her back bends. It is so amazing to see, right? He's 80-something, and she's tall, really tall. And she's got her hands here like this, and he's got holding her here, his pelvis against her. And it's kind of funny, because actually the guru dropped Manuel on his head on the concrete floor a couple of times. And he's got her there, and she's dropping her head all the way back to the floor. He doesn't drop her, but he lifts her up, and she goes down and back and down and back all these times. And then I look, because it's a little weird. I mean, it's already weird here. We're in India, and out on the street there's Indians. And men and women, and the women are dressed in saris, so they have their shoulders covered, they have their legs covered. And here in this yoga room, it's one Indian man and all these foreigners. And the women are wearing like shorts and sport bras. I mean, she's finished her back bends, and my teacher usually stands back. Catch your breath. And she's heaving, and her breasts are bouncing up and down. It's a lot of work. And he's still got his hands there, but they're like one on either butt cheek. And he's just holding. And then he takes and he starts to travel into her butt crack. And I think that's really weird. But maybe she's got an injury. And she asked him to do that. See? He's holding that person over there, right? More sensible place at the sacrum. Center of balance. It is a man. Then there's this pose that is so hard, right? And this woman is trying to do it. You gotta hold on to your feet, and then you gotta try to lift up to balance. Right? Try to lift up to balance without bending your knees, without letting go of your feet up to here. So usually the teacher has to come around and they lift you up by your shoulders. And he's just lifted her up by her breasts. And it's my turn. And I go up there sheepishly, roll out my mat, and I notice that I can't quite keep my breath even. It's kind of unsteady. And that's normal, but normally at least I start with my breath steady. And then you notice that it's unsteady, and that's the practice. You bring it back calm and even, and I just can't, because I'm worried that the guru is going to touch me in some way that I don't like, or he's going to like push me beyond. It's so hard to practice. And then I start to do really these odd things, right? So there's this one pose. There's 4 of these, A, B, C, and D. And I find I start to pace myself. So there's A, and I go down there into the pose, and I know I don't need the guru's help, so I stay down there for my 8 breaths. And then there's B. And again, I know I don't need the guru's help, so I go down and I hold 8 breaths. But C is next. And I know that I need his help in C. So I look, I wait till he's on the other side of the room, and then I lift up, and I go down into C. And he's gonna push my hands down to the floor, and it really hurts. So if I hear him coming, I pretend I finished my 8 breaths. And I go on to I start to feel like high school. I start to get really cynical, and I hang out with the cynical people. I get really rebellious. And while all the devoted ones call him Guruji, affectionately, we call him PJ, like pajamas. He teaches in his underwear. But become jealous of the devoted ones. I mean, their practice is so beautiful. They seem to float on air. And they sing perfect Indian music scales and they chant fluent Sanskrit. But mostly they get a lot of attention from the teacher. So it's very important, this relationship between student and teacher. And it's said that you can take anything, really anything, as your teacher, like a rock. But you have to surrender to it unconditionally and love it. So if it's a rock, you sing to it, and you shower it, and you anoint it every day. And if you take a human as your guru, you become humble to them, and you surrender to them. And it's really normal, it's not uncommon to then kiss your guru's feet. Happens all the time. And they would do it in the yoga studio. At the end of their practice, the students would get dressed, and they would come down, and they would wait for the guru's blessing, and then they would have the honor of kissing his feet. It was really something to see them. You know, they'd come floating down. They look like a bride going to the aisle. Angel floating to heaven. And us cynical people, we called it going down on Guruji. And everybody had their own way of doing it, right? So there was Doug, and he would go down on Guruji, and he would rub his head back and forth on his feet like he was trying to climb in there. And then there was Marina, and she would go down on Guruji, and she would kind of throw his energy over her like light. And then there was Dave, and he would go down on Guruji, dive down there, and he'd hang on to his feet, and he wouldn't let go, and he'd cry! And the cynical people? At the end of the day, we'd all gossip, and we'd say, so, did you see how so-and-so went down on Guruji today? You know, but it was so like me. So like me to just be on the outside, looking in. So I said, you know what, I've come across the fucking globe for this. I'm gonna do it. I am going to become devoted. I'm gonna go down on Guruji. So I do it. I take and I lightly place my head there. And I get drawn into this dark, black tunnel. And it feels so good. And there's this entrance gate, and it's got all this spongy layers of stuff. It's kind of like a car wash. And at the end, there's this bright white light, and I come up and I'm looking at his smiling face, and I feel like the possibilities are infinite. And I am bursting with love. And I stand up, and I see his big, wet lips coming towards me. And I turn, and he kisses me right there. And as I go out into the street, and the Indian sun just kind of dries and tingles and tickles. It reminds me kind of like my grandfather's kisses. Equally wet, equally awkward. So there I was, practicing on this cloud of devotion. And I started to smell this really horrible smell one day. Every time I got close to the ground, it smelled awful. And then I realized, this isn't my mat. No, that is my mat. That guy has my mat. And his mat stinks. Doesn't he know anything about sosha, cleanliness? You know, it's the first and the second limb of Ashtanga Yoga is the yamas and the niyamas. They're the moral codes. And it's really hard to practice when you're angry. And especially when you don't want to breathe. And somehow I find some contentment, right? Some santosha. You cultivate that too. And I'm going up into one of my favorite poses. Try to breathe. Finding, yeah, there it is, contentment. And boom! Oh! He kicks me in the face! And he doesn't upstairs, I'm gonna take a drink of water. And I go upstairs and there's this other guy drinking from my water bottle. That's stealing. What about Astea? Non-stealing. And I just feel like a little high school anger. I feel like I'm back home and I'm at the breakfast table and it's like, Mom, Mom, Russell stole my bacon. He stole my bacon. And I just can't find any more Santosha. I just want to take this guy and I want to rub his face in his stinking match. And yeah, well, I think maybe this is a little out of proportion. I mean, maybe I can have some compassion. Okay, it was just a mistake. He didn't mean to take my mat. You know what? Maybe his mother didn't even take care of him when he was little. He doesn't know how to clean. Okay, I can understand that. And maybe this guy over here, maybe he's dehydrated. I can have compassion for that. But you know what? What I'm really mad at is this guru for the way he touches me every morning. And maybe what I'm really mad at is myself for putting myself in this position every day. And maybe I'm really mad at this whole community for letting it happen. And Mom, it's not the bacon. It is something else. So a few days later, I left Mysore. I decided to go and pilgrimage elsewhere in yoga, in India. And I'm looking for enlightenment. So I went from one sacred site to another. And I ended up on the Great Lingam Tour. There's 9 sacred penises in India. And I found myself traveling from one to the next. And at the first site, I ended up in this cave with this really sweet sadhu, this really sweet holy man. And he sang to this lingam, and then he cleaned it, and then he oiled it with sandalwood up and down for a really long time. And he poured white milk over the top of it. And it was so beautiful how it made these shapes on this smooth black phallus shape. And then it trickled out the outsides of the cave and down the hill. And he covered it with ghee, purified butter, turned into this kind of white frosting looking thing. And he took and put flowers here and there all over it. It ended up looking like a little erotic cake you might find on Avenue B. Some of these lingams are so holy, they don't let non-Hindus in. And so I had to go with the pilgrims. I would go down to the beach, and we would carve lingams out of the sand. And I found myself kind of like Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I kept like carving lingams out of every material I could find. And one day I was at a restaurant, and I was carving my dal and my rice, and I was making it into this shape. And I noticed that there was this rim right around the edge. You know, that each lingam, it was sitting in this rim, and I realized it's the yoni. You know, they're all sitting in the yoni, and it's all about where you come from. It's all about where you sit. It's not about the lingam, it's all about the pussy. So, I left the lingam tour, and I went to the great one and only Cosmic Vagina Cave in India. When Shiva, when his wife Parvati died, he tore her apart from limb to limb. And he dropped her parts all over India. And Gauhati in Assam is where her pussy fell. It's a great magical cave, and there's so much Shakti here. It's red blood that comes, and these people come from all over India to drench themselves in it. And there's Shakti like crazy. It's scary. There's rebellion and gunfire, and there's floods, and thousands of people die. And there's magic. And the goddess, Kamakya Devi, if you worship her, there's great magic. a lot of men were offering to worship my yoni in Gauhati. But the thing is, a man can't offer to teach. Traditionally, the teachings come from a woman. And he can't even ask to be taught. He can sit there quietly and wait and look like he might maybe want to be taught, but he can't say anything. So I was waiting for this great female teacher to come. And my visa was running out. She wasn't appearing. So I started to do this Tibetan dream yoga practice. And I just slept all the time. And in my dreams, Kamakya Devi came to me. And she set me up with this really gorgeous, really dreamy guy. And I became enlightened, awake. But only in my dreams, only in my sleep. I want you to wake me. I want you to wake me from that place where I have no beginning and no end. I want you to wake me from that place where I'm completely at peace, completely relaxed. And I want you to wake me by making love to me. I want you to say my name and tell me that it's safe. I want you to enter me so gently and stopping and listening to see if it is okay. I want you to tell me that you love me. And say my name softly, tenderly. I want you to wake me. New York City. It's a dark, rainy night. I've got a little newspaper over my head. I'm so relaxed. I just had this great massage. Walking down the street, and all of a sudden I hear these footsteps. Like, it's not very good. And I turn around, and it is not good. There's this guy after me, and he's big, and he's mean, and he comes up, and I head right out into the middle of the street, and I face him, head on. And he is huge. I mean, like, his arm, it's like two of my legs put together. And all of a sudden, time gets really slow. And I remember this self-defense pamphlet that I read on a bike in the health club. And everything comes back to me. And I take a peace sign, and I go, boom, in his eyeballs. But he shifts. And then right there, I take this, and I go, boom, in his esophagus. And he shifts again. And then, miracle of miracles, he falls down. And I feel like Kali Ma, the goddess of death and destruction. And she's got these heads of men around her neck, and she dances on Shiva's corpse, and I want to jump on him. I want to stomp him in the face. But I'm not stupid. I run. You wake me. But it's not how I asked for it. You're rough. You don't say my name. And you pull on my hair and you don't listen, and it's not okay. And I don't say anything. I'm quiet and still. You put your cum all over my stomach and my breasts, your cum, that normally I like to touch, is sticky and smelly. And not that you can't sometimes be rough, but not like this. Not in the deep peace of my sleep. When I was 15, my parents took in a foster child. And he was about a year older than me. He went to my high school. it was pretty usual for me to open up my family. We were always taking in exchange students. And I had lived in Japan with a family there. So it was really easy for me to accept somebody else as a member of my family. But it was kind of weird because he was this incredible, popular jock. I mean, he was in a totally different social circle. He was really big in the track team and in the football team. He was a big star, and I was a nerd. And I went to this high school. It was pretty much all white, and he was half black and half Puerto Rican. Really exotic and sexy and handsome. And while all the other boys were kind of awkward in high school, he was really in control of his machine. Except when he was drunk or stoned, which was actually quite often. And that's why my parents took him in, because his grandparents couldn't handle him anymore. And it was pretty normal for a while. We went to high school together, walked to school, ate dinner. And then one night I came home from a date, and he was up waiting for me. And he asked me to dance, to slow dance. And it was kind of, he didn't kiss me, he didn't ask me. And I didn't quite know where to say stop or no. And we had sex. But I couldn't do it at home like family, so I said, let's go across the street behind this building. And it wasn't very nice. It was kind of cold, and there was a stick poking at my back. And the next day I said, you know, I didn't like that. It made me really uncomfortable. I don't want to do that anymore. Let's not have sex. And he nodded, but he didn't say anything. That night, I was sleeping, and I felt this pressure on my chest, and I couldn't breathe. And I thought maybe I was having one of those dreams that we talked about in psychology class, where you have a big black panther on your chest. But it wasn't. It was Russell. He was on top of me, and he pushed up my nightgown, and he was trying to put his penis inside of me. But he was really drunk, so I just kept pushing it away. And he kept trying, and I kept pushing it away. And after a while, he just got tired and left. I didn't make a sound. And this scene repeated itself for the next year of my life. Sometimes I'd wake up to these wet kiss lips all over my face. And sometimes I'd wake up to him kind of poking his penis into my mouth. But mostly I just woke up to this smothering weight. And other girls in high school had weekly dates. I had weekly rapes. I didn't go to prom. It was too embarrassing. I remember one night we were fighting a little bit harder than usual, and I pushed myself off the bed, and I ran underneath the bed and out into the hallway. And I got out there, and I kind of didn't know what to do. So I went back in my room, and he was standing there at the foot of my bed, just standing there. And I slapped him in the face. And he left. And it's weird. I never told my parents. I thought they knew. I thought that they knew, and it was just up to me to deal with it. I thought they'd say, you asked for it. So there I was in India, studying with a master. Pissed, uncomfortable, but I did not want to go back to New York as a quitter. I'm in that pose, that really hard pose that I try to avoid with him, but this time, he's materialized from nowhere, and he's right on top of me. And he's pushing my hands all the way down to the floor. And then he turns them over in this other way that makes it worse. The torture is awful. I don't know what's going to break first, my neck, my shoulders, or my wrists. And I'm trying to decide which one's going to go first. And right about then, he takes his hand and he just starts to travel from my lower back down my butt crack. And he keeps on going. And he takes his hand and he just lightly cups my mound there. And then with 2 fingers, he starts to just stroke. Like he's testing the resistance of my leotards or something. And in my memory, I say, "Stop, don't do that." But I didn't make a sound. He doesn't stop. He keeps on stroking and poking with this cotton and spandex condom. It's not particularly erotic. It's more like a little kid with a stick with a bug in the dirt. Those 8 breaths seem like a long time. When he lets me up, he's smiling. I'm not. He says, "Opening coming." I roll up my mat and leave. I didn't tell too many people why I was leaving. All my cynical friends had left, and the devoted people were now my friends. I wanted to stay and study with him, but my pussy was in pain. My heart was in pain. And it was my truth, and I didn't want anyone to take it from me. I had been warned. People said that the guru had a way with his hands. But they also said that if you put out a vibe that you didn't want to be touched in that way, he wouldn't touch you in that way. And those first times that he was touching me, I thought, am I putting out a vibe that I like this? I overheard other women talk about how they felt about this. And this one woman said that she was really lonely, and she appreciated the touch. Another woman said that she thought that the guru was stroking her Kundalini and getting it to rise up. And one woman said she loved studying with the guru, but she just didn't like those uncomfortable moments, and she would just hold her breath and look at the ceiling and wait till that was over. 360 degrees. A full circle. So about 3 years after this, the guru came to New York to teach a workshop, and I had to decide whether or not I wanted to be there. It was 200 people doing yoga together. It was a moment in yogic history that I really didn't want to miss. And I got there, and this woman was really surprised. She said, "What are you doing here? I thought that you hated this guru." And I said, "I'm practicing yoga." See, you have to let go. You have to forgive. You can't do a pose like this if you're holding on to your anger. And I knew he probably wouldn't pull any fancy fingers in New York. And I also knew that I was a stronger woman. And if he touched me in a way I didn't like, I'd slap him. There was this moment where I lay down in Shavasana to take rest, and I looked underneath the radiator, and there were all these corsage pins with little pearl heads sleeping in the dust. All those proms, all those memories. I even kissed his feet. And I did it completely whole and honest. I said, this is a man who's human and has faults, and I can forgive those faults. And I can be very respectful that he is so devoted to carrying on these teachings and that he passes them on with such energy, with such zeal, and I can respect that. And after I bowed to him, we had our picture taken together, and we were radiant, smiling. There's love there. So there's this one pose that I really struggle with in the practice. And like I said, you can't do this practice without a teacher. So I wonder if I could have someone help me.
Sure.
Which bearded one? I'm gonna take the little one over here. I'm gonna take this bearded one. So you can stand there and look pretty for a little minute. And I'm gonna go into this pose. So it's called Kormasana. It's really about going into your shell. So now, I think if you take and push my back down, right, a little higher. And you can go ahead and really push, yeah. Okay, that's good. And now, take this foot and lift it up and put it a little more in front of my head. This foot here. Yeah. I'm gonna kind of push my shoulder down too, yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then you can do the same with this foot. And then take my elbows and push my hands together. Okay. Now try this. Try sitting on my back. But don't smush my nose. And then you can kind of push my feet together. Try crossing. Bring this one forward and then cross this one over it.
Oh, God.
Okay, now we're going to lift up.
Oh, my God.
Okay, don't drop me back. You can put me a little more forward. All right, great. You can go now. See, I couldn't do that with the guru in India. But I can do it with you here now.
Ladies and gentlemen, please watch your step on the way out. There's a little lift at the doorway, and Marisa will greet you downstairs.